Good morning, boys and girls. Today we're starting a new unit for language arts. We're going to be starting Unit 6, and we are going to be starting, of course, with Lesson 1. And we are going to work on identifying 3 different spellings for the S sound today. And we are also going to describe the elements or the parts of a personal narrative. This week we have some spelling words, and you are going to have a spelling test on Friday. Your first word with the double M spelling, making the sound, is swimming. Your 2 words with the double T spelling are rotten and batter. You have 3 words with the double D spelling, that makes the D sound, hidden, shredded, and knotted. We also have the word popping with the double P spelling that makes a P sound. And our tricky word is there. Not like over there, but as in that is their house. There. So now you can go ahead and pause and go on to Class Kick and complete your spelling practice for this morning. And moving on, we're going to, as we talked about in our learning objectives, we're going to be working on different spellings for the S sound. So we know that we can spell the S sound with the letter S, like in the word sun. And you see this big red bar right here, because when we spell words with the S sound, we usually spell them with the letter S. But we've learned that we can also spell the S sound with the double S. Now, if you look here, the bar is a lot smaller. There's a smaller red bar because usually we don't spell words with the double S for the S sound. Only once in a while. Usually we spell words with the letter S. That's why this is a big red long bar. Okay, so we've already learned those 2 spellings, the letter S for S and the double S for S. But now it's time to learn a new spelling. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we learn our new spelling, let's look at a few words spelled with S, it, sit, and sun. Let's also take a look at a few words with the double S, dress, and kiss. Okay, now it's time for a new spelling. That makes this sound. Sometimes we can spell a word with the S sound with the letter C, like in the word scent, or sell, or pencil. So this is an even smaller bar than the double S spelling because we don't usually spell words with the letter C when we have the S sound. Usually we're always going to spell a word with the S sound with the letter S, sometimes with the double S, and other times with the letter C. Okay? And so this is one way that you can think about it. So just like there are different colors for the same flower, here's a little picture of some flowers I have, there's different spellings for the same sound. And there are different spellings that we know for S are S, double S, and sometimes C. Okay. Moving along to writing our narrative. So again, all good writers plan, and then they draft, they edit their writing, and then publish their writing. And we're going to start our new writing unit, which is going to be working on a personal narrative. So we just finished writing our opinion pieces, what we think and what we feel about a topic or a text. And now we're going to use the writing process to write a personal narrative. So what is a personal narrative? Well, we've already read a personal narrative in Kate's book. So the reader that we just finished with all of Kate's stories is that was a personal narrative because it's a story that Kate wrote about and it's something that happened to her. So a narrative is a story, and personal means the story is about something that happened to you. A personal narrative describes something that happened to the author. So over the next few lessons over this next week, you're going to learn how to write a personal narrative. Let's take a look at what a personal narrative contains. What are the elements of a personal narrative? What are the different parts? So a personal narrative is always going to have a title. It's going to have a setting. A personal narrative is going to have characters, a narrator, and a plot. Okay, let's go over that a little bit more. So we know what a title is. That's the name of the story. The setting, where and when the story takes place. A personal narrative has characters who do things. And one of the characters in a personal narrative is always going to be the author or narrator who's sharing the experience. A personal narrative is always going to have a plot, which means it's going to have a beginning, it's going to have a middle, and it's going to have an ending. Now I want to take just a moment to read an example of a personal narrative to you. Now this is a narrative from Kate's book. And again, this is an example of what a personal narrative looks like. And this is a personal narrative because it was written by Kate about something that happened to her. And the title of this personal narrative is In the Cave. When I went to visit with Nan, I was sad. I missed Mom and Dad. But Nan cheered me up and made things fun. Nan took me on hikes. The land I saw in the west was not at all like the land I'm used to. Where I am from, things are green in the summer and there are lots of trees. In the west, there are hills and red rocks, but not a lot of trees. In some spots, you can hike for a mile and not see one tree. Once, Nan and I were on a hike when it started to storm. Nan and I went into a cave so that we would not get wet. As we were standing there, I saw something shimmer in the dark. Nan, I said, pointing at the spot. What's that? Well, said Nan, let's have a look. We looked and saw something stuck in a crack in the rock. I grabbed it. It's a coin, I said. Well, I'll be, said Nan. I said, what sort of coin is it? Nan said, I can't tell. It looks like it could be made of silver. Then she said, I have a pal, Jack, who's an expert on coins. We can bring it to him tomorrow, and he will tell us what sort of coin it is. I dropped the coin in my pocket, and we went on with our hike. So again, that's an example of a personal narrative. It's a story written by Kate. It has a title. It has characters. Kate is part of the story. She is the author. She is the one who's writing the story. She is the narrator, the one telling the story. It also has a beginning, a middle, and an end, which is the plot. Okay? Now, a personal narrative is different than a fictional story because it's not made up. It's not a made-up story, but it contains many of the same elements of a fictional story. Well, all good stories answer the 5 W questions. The first question a good story answers is who? And this question asks about the characters in the story. A good story answers this question, what? This question asks about the plot of the story, the beginning, middle, and end. So what happens to the characters in the story? Where is the next question that a good story answers, and this asks about where the story takes place, which is part of the setting. When? This question asks about the time of the story, which is also part of the setting. So maybe the story happens in the morning or winter or last year. We always need to answer this question, when. And our last question is why. And this question gives the reason for the character's action. So for example, why did the main character do whatever they did? Now, not all stories answer this why question, but most good stories are going to answer this question. So again, these 5 W questions that all good stories have, all good personal narratives have, answer these questions. Who is the story about? What happens? Where does it happen? When does it happen? And why do the events happen? Now, in Class Kick today, you're going to be answering questions about Kate's personal narrative in the cave. So you're going to see this worksheet 1.3, and you're going to fill in the blanks to organize the elements of Kate's story in the cave. So you're going to write the name of the tale, which was in the cave, who it was about, where the story happened, when the story happened, how it started, what happened in the beginning, what happened in the middle, next in the tale, and what happens at the end of the tale, or at the end of the story. Okay? And one last thing that I want to make sure that you understand is that that the narrator is the person who tells the story. So the narrator is the I character in the story. For example, in this story, in the cave, the narrator is Kate. When I went to visit with Nan, I was sad. Kate is saying that. She is the narrator. All right, time for you to go back onto Class Kick and complete worksheet 1.3.